Imagine holding a single document that has the actual power to fund your biggest community initiative or, scale your absolute dream project. Welcome to this Masterclass Explainer on mastering the art of persuasive proposal writing. Today, we're basically treating this explainer like a premium step-by-step online academy course. We're going to break down the exact anatomy of a winning funding proposal and give you the practical toolkit you need to finally secure the resources your project absolutely deserves. Let's dive in. But hey, before we get into the nuts and bolts, I want you to take a second and really think about this. What actually makes a donor say yes? Like, how does one single document determine the survival, the scaling, and the ultimate success of an entire project? Well, it's not just about asking for money, right? It's about building a solid bridge of trust. It's about combining deep, logical proof with an undeniable emotional hook. And by the end of this explainer, you're going to know exactly how to engineer that yes. So, here's our roadmap for today's course. We'll start off with Module 1, the blueprint. Then we'll move into Module 2, the execution. Module 3 covers common pitfalls, and we'll wrap up with Module 4, actionable practice. All right, let's jump right into Module 1, the blueprint. Just like an architect wouldn't dream of building a skyscraper without a plan, you need a precise blueprint. These 8 essential components you see here, they basically form an unbreakable chain of logic. First, you start with the cover letter and executive summary to just open the door. Then, your statement of need and project description build the foundation of the why and the what. Next, your budget and organizational info provide the structural integrity, proving you're financially capable. And finally, the evaluation and sustainability plans, well, they put a roof on the project, ensuring it actually lasts. Now, here is a massive secret weapon when it comes to the executive summary. Write this section last, but place it at the beginning of the proposal. I know, it sounds a bit counterintuitive, right? But because it summarizes your entire problem, solution, and funding request, you literally cannot write it effectively until all the other details are totally finalized. So it sits at the front to hook the reader, but you craft it at the very end when your vision is at its absolute sharpest. Moving right down our blueprint, we hit the statement of need. This answers the absolutely crucial question: why should we care right now? Grounding your project in hard statistics triggers logical buy-in, sure, but framing those numbers around real, tangible human impact, that triggers the emotional buy-in. You really need both of those working together to be truly persuasive. Next up, we group the core operational sections together. Honestly, this is where the dream becomes reality. You need clear objectives, a solid methodology, a timeline, and most importantly, specific, measurable impact goals tied directly to a detailed budget. Donors invest in outcomes, not just good ideas. Plus, you absolutely must include your organization's track record to prove that your specific team has the chops to execute this operational plan flawlessly. Okay, so you've proven the need, you've mapped out the plan, and you've made the ask. But listen, every single savvy donor is going to ask one vital question. How do you prove your project will last after the money runs out? And this is exactly why having robust evaluation and sustainability plans is totally non-negotiable. You have to show them that their investment isn't just, a temporary band-aid, but a real catalyst for lasting, measurable change. Moving right along, let's hit Module 2, the execution. So now we're shifting gears from what to include to exactly how you should write it. Think about the donor's journey as they read. You need a super strong introduction to instantly capture their attention, leading right into a body that's divided by clear headings, so they literally never get lost. And this should flow into a compelling conclusion for your final appeal. Wrap the whole shebang in professional formatting, using charts and clean design to make your logic completely effortless to follow. At the very heart of flawless execution is persuasiveness. Now, in proposal writing, this is never, ever about trickery or being overly salesy. It's really the ultimate balance of facts, logic, and emotional appeal. It's about aligning your project's goals perfectly with the donor's genuine desire to make a tangible difference. To pull that off, you need 3 non-negotiable skills in your toolkit. First up, clarity. Just ditch the industry jargon and use straightforward, human-friendly language. Second is persuasiveness. You want to constantly highlight the ultimate benefits and impact, not just list out the features of your project. And third, consistency. Your tone, your core message, and your numbers, they must align perfectly across every single page. Which brings us to Module 3, Common Pitfalls. All right, let's put on our troubleshooter hats for a second. One of the most fatal errors you can make is presenting ambiguous costs.
Honestly, if a donor looks at your budget and has to guess where the numbers came from, you've lost their trust instantly. Poof, gone. The absolute best practice here is providing a highly detailed budget narrative. Transparency is incredibly persuasive. You want to show them exactly how every single dollar will be maximized to create impact.
Another massive trap is relying on vague statements. Just saying something like, many people are struggling. Well, it simply isn't enough. Instead, you need to use hard evidence. Say something like, data shows a 40% increase in food insecurity in our target zip code over the last 2 years. You feel the difference there, right? Concrete evidence builds undeniable credibility. You also really need to avoid these silent killers, like deviating from your main focus. That will just confuse the reader. And please, for the love of everything, do not let a simple typo ruin a $1 million pitch. Just proofread. But, the most tragic error of all is ignoring specific donor guidelines. If they ask for a specific font or margin size, do it. Failing to follow basic instructions before they've even given you a dime is a massive red flag. Now for the fun part. Module 4, Actionable Practice. The best learning experiences don't just leave you hanging with theory, right? They build actual muscle memory. So here is your first practical challenge. I want you to select a project scenario. It can be real or hypothetical. Then actually draft all 8 essential components from scratch. Finally, review your draft, specifically hunting for the best practices we talked about and making sure you avoid those pitfalls we just covered. Because writing in a vacuum is pretty dangerous, your next exercise is a peer review. Go ahead and exchange your draft with a colleague or a fellow learner. Have them actively critique it for clarity, persuasiveness, and completeness. Ask them, did they understand your budget? Were they emotionally moved by your statement of need? Then incorporate that constructive critique to really refine your proposal. Getting feedback is literally one of the most powerful tools you have for elevating your persuasiveness. Now, for those of you who are truly ready to reach real-world mastery, you can take these next steps. Think about attending advanced workshops, or maybe invite professional grant writers to speak to your team, or even build your own customized proposal checklist. But most importantly, try to reverse engineer successful case studies from various sectors. It's incredibly helpful to see exactly how the pros actually implement these 8 core components out in the wild. So we've covered the blueprint, the execution, the pitfalls, and the practice. Now I want to leave you with one final vital question. Are you ready to effectively communicate your project's true value and finally secure that funding? Because you now have this structured toolkit to do exactly that. The resources are out there just waiting for visionary leaders who know how to ask. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Now go get out there and write your winning proposal.